Alrighty, how's everybody doing? Here's a quick tutorial on how to do the Open VPN server. So we're here at the main page of the AWS, and I know for this all we needed to do is implement the screenshot which you have. But we'll give you guys a quick, small, little brief rundown. I'm not gonna show you all how to do it since all we need to do is the screenshot, and for the sake of time. But here at the main page, we'll click on Services, go to All Services, View All Services. Under Compute, we'll click on EC2. Right here, Launch Instance. And right here, we'll type in OpenVPN. So we want to click on the first one here, not the one that says 10 connected devices, but the first one. Go ahead and click on Continue. So here, we'll change the instance type to t2.micro since the free tier eligible. Here, once we create a new key pair, we'll just launch the instance here, and it'll take us to a page like this right here, where it'll show us that the state of the instance that is up and running. Once we do that, all we have to do is connect through it, go through the command line, set up the rest of the prompts there, and through there we'll fully set up the rest of the VPN. And here is the screenshot of our VPN officially up and running. And yeah, that was a quick little tutorial on how to do the VPN. We thought we'll just give you guys a quick little brief summary of that through the AWS console, where to go or where to find it, instead of just showing you guys the little screenshot of the thing. But yeah, there it is for the Open VPN.
The first step is to create a VPC, or a virtual private cloud, which will make sure that our network is secure and private. So what we do is search up VPC, go over here, and then what we want to do is to select our region that we want our VPC to be. So let's choose North California. Here we can see our VPCs. There's a main default one. This is the one that Amazon Web Services creates for you. What we want to do is create a new VPC. We can create VPC and more, which will create our subnets, our private and public ones, and our route tables for us. Then we want to rename it AWS-example. We can change the number of IP addresses or the subnet. We're just going to leave it as is. You can change the number of availability zones, the number of subnets that it creates for you, and you can even opt in for NAT gateways, but this will cost money. It's as simple as pressing Create VPC. It'll create all the subnets and the route tables for you, and there you go. So first off, we're going to go to the Services tab, go down to Compute, then click EC2. Then you can see the EC2 dashboard, which basically gives you all the options that you have for EC2. You can check how many instances you have running, how many load balancers you have, etc., security groups, etc., etc. We're going to launch an instance here from the Launch Instance tab. Then we're going to name this AWS Web Server. You can name it whatever. Then you can click a distribution or operating system that you would like to choose. We're going to go ahead and choose Amazon Linux, but you can choose Mac, you can choose Windows, you can choose Linux, other Linux distributions that Amazon offers for free. We're choosing the free tier, and we're going to be choosing a micro. Here you can create a key pair, which is required to log into your SSH. We're going to create a new one now, and we're going to create it for PuTTY, since that's what I installed for my SSH client. And we're just going to name this web server key. Then we're going to create it, and it'll download it to your downloads directory. Then you can start setting up a network. Here we're going to use the VPC that we created earlier. Then we're going to select the first public subnet, sorry. Then we're going to auto-assign public IPs, since it's going to be a web server, and we're going to create a new security group here. Now I'm going to name this AWS Web Server Security. And I'm just going to give it a quick description, Web Server Security. Then we're going to add rules to the group. So as you can see, we can SSH into it, but we don't want everybody to SSH into it. So we're going to only let my IP SSH into the server. We're going to add another one. We're going to add HTTP, since we want people to connect over it. Anyone can connect over HTTP. And we're also, why not? Let's just put in HTTPS and put in anywhere. Now, only I can SSH into the server, but other people can connect via HTTP and HTTPS. Then we can configure storage. When you have free tier AWS, you get like 30 gigs. I'm just going to go with like 24. Then here you can go down and bootstrap. I have a script over here. Basically what it does is execute commands onto the Linux terminal. So we're bashing into Linux. We're going to update. Then we're going to install Apache Web Server, which is going to run our server. we're going to start Apache Web Server service and enable it. That's basically what this line of code does. We'll start the instance. And there you go. Now that we created our instance, we're going to want to go back to our instances page. Then we're going to want to check if it's running. If it's not, just give it a minute and it'll start up. Then we're going to copy either the DNS or the IP address of our instance, put it into a new web page, and there you go. A new test page for Apache Web Server. This page is essentially a placeholder for putting like your HTML, so it'll be like this until you put some HTML files into the server. For now, we're going to create a database though. So we're going to go back to our instances page, go over here and click on the checkbox, go to networking and the actions tab on the top right, and connect database. Here we're going to connect a database. We're going to have to create one since we don't have one right now. You can go over here. When you click on create RDS database, it'll take you to this console. Then you're going to create a new database. So let's just create one. Give ourselves a super secret password and just create. Now this will take a couple minutes to create, so I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit. Now that we got the database set up, as we can see it running with 2% CPU usage, we can now connect it to our AWS instance. So what we would do is either go from here or from the page that we went to earlier, which is the networking connect database page, and we can do it from here too. And we can select instance, and then you'll see your new database be created here. If you created multiple databases, it would be a cluster. You can also do it here, set up EC2 connection, and here you go. Now I actually did this off camera, so I'm going to show you it now, the footage. And yeah, that's just it setting up security groups. Now that our EC2 instance and database are talking to each other and connected, we can now create a load balancer. In order to create a load balancer, we first need to create a target group by going down to load balancing and target groups. Next, we go to create a target group. A target group is basically a pointer for your load balancer to go to your instance. We're going to select instances in this case. Then we're going to select aws.tg for the group name. Then we're going to go to HTTP. Since it's a basic web server, we'll just leave it like that. We'll change the VPC to our VPC we created earlier. We don't need to do anything else here, and we just go next. Then we select the running instance, and we just select it, checkmark it, and we create our target group. Now we can create our load balancer. I find the easiest way is to create an auto-scaling group. Here, we go to the auto-scaling group, and we type in our name. I'm going to type in ASG for auto-scaling group. Next, we need to select a launch template. You can select a launch template, or you can create one. I already have one created, but I'm going to just show you the launch template real quick. It's basically the same thing as the EC2 instance creator. All you have to do is just select your OS, select your key pair, select your type of machine, and select your security group. Be sure to select the same security group as your instance. I'm going to just use the one I used earlier, and to go next. Then we use the VPC that we created earlier, and then we select the public subnets here. Be careful not to select the private ones or your database ones. As we can see, the database ones are here too. Select next. Now we can create a new load balancer. We want one for HTTP traffic. We're just going to rename it to load balancer. We're going to have it internet facing since it's a web server. These are the public subnets just to make sure. Yep. Put the target group that we created earlier into there, and we select next. Put 3 for these, so we have 3 servers backing up our one. This is just dynamically scaling. And to add some tags, we don't need to do that either. And overview what we did. Looks good. And now we have an auto scaling group and a load balancer. So now when we go back to our EC2 dashboard, we should be able to see a load balancer in here provisioning. That means it's starting up. Load balancers are essentially just virtual machines that are going to back up your virtual machine just in case it goes down. So we just designated 3. So it's going to set up 3 virtual machines right now. So that might take a minute. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Now that our load balancer and our auto scaling group is up with 3 instances, we can see that there are now 3 new instances backing up our first instance. We have created a load balancer essentially. They don't have any IP addresses, it looks like, but they are just on standby in order to help the server. Now that our EC2 instance, our database, and our load balancers are set up, we can now SSH into the server. In order to do that, we need the key pair that we got from our EC2 instance setup, and we're going to put a password on it. You can do this via a terminal on Mac or Linux, but we're going to be using a PuTTY key generator in this tutorial. So we're going to load the web server key that we got from our download, and we're going to encrypt it with a password. Now we just save it. I'm going to save it as web server private, and it should pop up here now. Now we can use that to SSH into our server. So now we just type ec2-user at the IP address that we want to connect to, so our server, at port 22. We go over here, we go to credentials, private key for authentication, we do the one that we just created, and we press open. Now we have a password prompt, we just put in the password that we just made, and now we're in. Now I'm just going to show you real quick the installation process for VNC. It's in the link in the description. There's a bunch of commands that you have to enter. It takes a while, so I'm just going to fast forward that. Now that we have Tiger VNC installed and that we rebooted the system, we're ready to GUI into the system. Now, in order to do that, we need to port forward real quick, so we're going to go to Change Settings on PuTTY. We're going to go to the window that pops up, and we're going to go here and press 5901 in the source port, down in Connection, SSH Tunnels, 5901, local host 5901. We're going to add that. We're also going to add 1. And once we do that and apply, all we have to do is open Tiger VNC, localhost 1, and then it'll ask for a password. We've set that up when we set up Tiger VNC server. And now we're in the GUI of the server. Now there's not much to do in here, but that's how you get into the VNC of an Amazon Web Services server. Now I'm going to add the web page onto the server that I just set up. As you can see, when we go to the website, we just get taken to a test page. This is because there are no HTML files on the server. In order to fix that, we go to our SSH client and we go to the root of the server. Then we have to change our directory to var/www/html. Now we're in the HTML directory. What we want to do now is to create a new HTML file. Since we're in a root directory, we're going to use superuser_do nano index.html. This is going to create a new HTML file. Now we're going to add our HTML code. I'm going to take it from my Visual Studio. And then we're going to save. We wrote those lines of code. Now, whenever we refresh this page, it shouldn't be the test page anymore, but our new website. We're going to exit out of this. And now, when we refresh the page, hello, this is our webpage by our group Zachary Honey and Raheem Shah. This website has a VPC, a load balancer, a database, and even a VNS server. Awesome. It even hosts its own VPN service. So there you go. That's how you host really basic HTML. Now we have a web page with a VPC, a load balancer, a database, and a way to GUI in.
Thank you all for watching. I hope this taught you something about how to set up a basic AWS cloud server to host a static web page. Instead of writing very basic HTML inside the server, you could upload your own HTML and other files with a terminal command for Mac or Linux, or WinSCP for Windows. This would SSH files into the server. Another way is to set up an S3 bucket, but this would cost you money.